Brandis, a proposed police union contract for rank-and-file members heads to City Council tomorrow, more than 4 years after the last contract expired. Alderpeople are also set to consider plans to allow marijuana to be sold legally downtown. And all this comes as some call for Alderman Jim Gardner's resignation amid allegations that he threatened constituents. And joining us to discuss that and other city business ahead of tomorrow's meeting are Alderperson Scott Waguespack, who represents parts of the North Side, Alderman Gilbert Villegas, who represents parts of the Northwest Side, Alderman Anthony Beal, who represents parts of the far South Side, and Alderman Brendan Riley, who represents most of the Loop. Welcome all of you back to Chicago tonight. To Alderman Waguespack, I'll start with you. That police union contract, it cleared committee. The full City Council will vote to ratify or not ratify it tomorrow. Does it go far enough in addressing some of the reform efforts that the mayor promised?
Well, I think it goes pretty far. We've done away with anonymous complaints here, but we've also added, I think there's going to be funding and aspects for mental health for police officers. So we're going to try and improve the work that we do on the back end for their health. So I think it's a pretty good compromise. A lot of people would like to see more, but I think that most aldermen might agree that this is, we've been waiting 5 years to get a contract. The interim agreement still has some things to work on, but I think it could move forward. And
it also awards 4 years of retroactive and proactive pay raises for police officers. This comes as the homicide rate is still high, Alderman Riley. Late last week, Superintendent Brown announced he was going to redeploy this citywide roving gang or community safety unit and put those cops into other units. Is that an acknowledgement that controversial plan has not worked?
Well, I'm glad the superintendent's making that change. It's something I've been advocating for and a number of my colleagues have. Unfortunately, the last 2 years, we've had incredible attrition rates at the department. Close to 1,100 officers have retired, and we're certainly not coming close to backfilling them in a timely fashion. So then to have hundreds more cops pulled out of the local beats and local districts onto much larger teams, not being directly supervised by local command staff, I didn't think that was the best use of resources right now. So I am grateful to the superintendent for making an adjustment to that program. Tactical units are very valuable. They're very important tools, but it can't be at the expense of the local police district and beat. Beat officers know their neighborhoods and the context of those neighborhoods best, and the local command staff are best at directing the tactical units that are used. So it's my hope that these changes will continue and that we'll get more of our officers back into the beats they know best, because that's where they can connect with the community. That's where they can gather intel, and they understand what to look out for when they're out there in the area they know best and work day to day.
And I know a lot of older people complained that this citywide unit took police officers from beats, so some will be happy to get those officers back if indeed that's where they go. Alderman Beal, this also comes as Mayor Lightfoot announced a plan to go after gang members' assets. Is this something that constitutionally would work or would work to help community safety?
Well, Paris, let me first say that I think it was an utter failure when the superintendent created that first unit. We had crime down over 33% in my area before he created that unit. And once that unit was created, crime went rampant, not only in my community, but the entire city. And so now, it is an admission of failure by the administration that his policy and the new rolling team did not work. And hopefully we can reverse the course, because a lot of people have died. A lot of people have been shot because of that strategy that failed. And so now when you look at here we are trying to sue, the gangbangers. I mean, how are you going to sue people who, number one, don't work? How are you going to sue somebody who don't have assets, who, don't have capital? And so this is just another, let's throw everything up against the wall and let's see what sticks. Let's see what gets the headline for today. And there's no way you're going to be able to sue these gangbangers, and this is all political maneuvering at its best.
And as the ACLU has talked about, sometimes it's really hard to pin down 100% whether or not someone is officially in a gang. Alderman Villegas, as all of this is going on, City Council is starting to discuss the new ward maps after the census, which showed significant gains in the Latino population. Does that mean you're going to fight for more majority Latino wards and perhaps Latino representatives on City Council?
Well, I think that the data just came in last month. We have our team analyzing it. When you put it into perspective, Latinos are just 40,000 people short of being the majority in the city of Chicago. So I think it's past due that we get our fair share of representation, not just in the wards, but also within city government. And when you take a look at this administration, having just 2 Latino commissioners, it's abysmal. I think the caucus has taken a stance that we want to see parity, because I can tell you right now, the diversity and inclusion and equity, all those other nice words are not working for our community. So we want to see parity, we want to see our fair share. And as it relates to the map, we're going to follow the data, the Voting Rights Act, and we're going to listen to the people of Chicago to kind of determine what it is they want to see as we reapportion the maps for the next decade.
Redrawing those maps is always an interesting process. I want to move to a proposal by the mayor to allow cannabis sales downtown where they are currently prohibited. Alderman Riley, this is something you've wanted for a while, although in this latest plan it would exempt Michigan Avenue, so no pot shops on Michigan Avenue or most of State Street. Does this plan work for you?
It's a compromise. It's not my preference. My preference would be there'd be no exclusion zone at all downtown. But that's the way the democratic process works at City Hall. You need to give up a little to get things done sometimes, and that's the case here. I think the city grossly undercounted the revenue upside that comes with the cannabis industry. Now we're at a point where all new social equity applicants that have just been waiting 2 years to get approved are in a position to go and get locations. By opening up downtown, we're giving those social equity applicants a leg up. It's an industry we need to embrace. I think the city of Chicago, every dollar we're making off cannabis revenue is one less dollar we need to lean on from the property tax bill. Most of my constituents have had it with property taxes. And I think the stigma that goes with cannabis is being lifted. People use this to help treat disease and symptoms of cancer. So I think there's a lot of use for it. We desperately need the revenue. We should embrace this as a tourism economy, a cannabis tourism economy. Other cities have, and they're making windfall profits. We can't afford to leave that money on the table right now when so many people need services and we need more police officers on the beat.
And Alderman Beal, this has been sold as a way to get Black or Latino business owners a leg up to get into the pot industry where they've severely been lacking. Do you think this plan would accomplish that?
Absolutely not. I voted against the original ordinance that came before the city of Chicago, and I said there was nothing in it for people of color. And as of today, there's still no people of color that are in this industry, and they've had almost a 3-year head start. And now we're looking at the social equity piece. And based on the data that I've looked at, almost 50% of these so-called social equity applicants are fronts, and they're fronting for other people. You got people like Ricky Hendon, who obtained a license, and now he's trying to sell the license. So at the end of the day, the people who wrote this ordinance are the same people that are dominating the industry. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the same old, where people of color are not going to be able to penetrate this industry. And it has hurt people of color more so than anybody in the history. The war on drugs offended the communities of color more so than anybody else, and we're not getting our fair share of the pie. And here we are once again trying to put another Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
Ricky Hendon, of course, a longtime political figure on the west side of Chicago. Alderman Wagasbeck, I want to get to this news about your colleague, Alderman Jim Gardner, who had text messages denigrating your female chief of staff. Also text messages that apparently show a vindictive streak seeking retaliation against constituents that oppose him. What kind of recourse should there be for Alderman Gardner?
Well, first I want to say I support the women who were on the receiving end of those text messages, and it's very inappropriate. It was misogynistic, and while he called me up, I think he still has to apologize and make amends there to the women and the constituents that he made the comments about in those messages. But I think the bigger thing here is, we hear stories about withholding services, and we just can't do that as aldermen. We might have disagreements on policies with our constituents. We might have disagreements about something like zoning and not referring those, but we have to still provide the services. We still have to do the things that every constituent is entitled to, and that is those services. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if the Inspector General takes it on or who does, but we can't go back to old machine ways of treating constituents. So I think it's at this point now where he has to make sure, the alderman does, that he's providing those services and doing right by his constituents.
And of course, the mayor has called for an inspector general investigation into a lot of these allegations. Alderman Villegas, you and all your colleagues are going to decide whether to take about a $6,000 to $7,000 pay increase. Are you going to take yours?
No, I've already submitted the documentation, and this is like the third or fourth time that I have declined it. Listen, we're coming out of a pandemic. Our communities are struggling. We need every penny possible to deal with programs for our constituents. My community was, the Black and brown communities were devastated by COVID. At one point, the 60639 area code, which I represent a portion of, had almost 1 in 5 people with COVID positive because of the fact that my ward has a lot of people that were essential workers. So I think that we need to tighten our belts as well until we get out of this pandemic. So I've already declined that pay raise, and this is the third or fourth time that I've done that.
And I'll pose that question to everyone else on this panel. Who's taking the pay raise? Who's declining it? Don't all answer at once.
I've taken it.
Alderman Riley, Beal?
I haven't made a decision yet.
I'm leaning towards taking it. I actually am the third lowest paid alderman on the council. I think that's only because I missed turning back the raise 1 year. So I think I'm $800 paid more than the lowest, but I'm still trying to figure that out. I've been doing the symbolic tightening of the belt since I was elected. So I'll think that through.
All right, well, a lot to think through in advance of tomorrow's meeting, a lot of stuff on the agenda, and we do thank alderpeople Scott Waguespack, Gilbert Villegas, Anthony Beal, and Brandon Riley for joining us. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.